Well, hello there, and if I haven't met you before, my name's Mike, and I'm really glad that we've got this moment in time together today. A few weeks ago, my wife Zoe and I celebrated our daughter Nora's first birthday. It was a fun day of celebration, and it was a little ironic seeing Nora more interested in content in the wrapping paper than the actual present. But it was also a really poignant day of remembering what's been a whirlwind 12 months of parenthood. And while I've learnt lots about how to change nappies and adjust to different sleep schedules and ensure that there's always a change of clothes for Nora and for myself, whenever we go anywhere, there's undoubtedly a lifetime of learning still to come. Now, if you were to ask Zoe, one of those key lessons that I'm yet to learn is how to move and talk and close doors around the house quietly while little Nora is asleep. And even though she's a pretty deep and a good sleeper, there are still far too many times where my words or my actions so loudly fills the environment of our home that Nora is startled awake. She starts to cry and the peace is suddenly shattered. And when the peace of a sleeping Nora evaporates, in that moment, I look towards Zoe and Zoe looks towards me, both of us, silently pleading with the other to go into a room and settle her in the hope that peace will be restored. But you don't have to be a parent relishing the sound of silence to know what it's like to be in an environment where the peace is shattered in an instant. A couple of years ago, I was in a lunchroom with 30 other people on a break, and the noise of 10 different lunchtime conversations going at the same time filled the room. That was until a mate of mine, in response to a joke, threw his head back in laughter and in the same motion kicked his leg straight up and through the glass table that he was sitting at. And in that moment, the peace of that environment, full of life and laughter and goodness, was shattered like the shards of glass that covered the floor as everyone in the room stared at my mate in stunned silence. I wonder, have you ever found yourself in a similar situation where a moment of peace with all its goodness and contentment and harmony suddenly seems to evaporate in an instant? Now, I share those two examples from earlier for two specific reasons. Firstly, because they illustrate the disorienting experience when the peace of a moment is suddenly turned upside down and inside out by a change in circumstance or environment. And secondly, those two short stories reveal a common response when peace suddenly disappears. We often look to someone or something in the hope that peace might be restored. So when I wake up Nora with just my loud existence, Zoe and I look to each other to see who will settle our crying baby this time and restore the peace. Or when my mate accidentally shattered a glass table, everyone else in the room looked at him to see what he would do next. We all experience moments of peace in our life and moments where peace seemingly evaporates in the blink of an eye. Maybe it's a concerning health diagnosis that just no one saw coming, or perhaps a sudden retrenchment in a job that seemed to be a secure option a year ago. Or maybe it's being blindsided by a friendship or a relationship breaking down because of an unexpected betrayal or conflict. One moment things appear to be going smoothly, predictably, and with a sense of sort of control. And then suddenly our experiences of peace in life disappears in a jarring instant. In those moments, who or what we look to in response often reveals the source of peace that we base our lives around. For some, our source for peace is a person. Maybe it's mum or dad, a spouse, a good friend, or a mentor. For others, our source for peace is a value or an ideal. Maybe it's good health, a secure career, a mortgage-free home, or a respected reputation in view of others. For others still, it's an experience or dream that exists somewhere in our future. Maybe it's a long anticipated holiday, the next stage of life, or simply a day without deadlines. And sometimes we even try to manufacture artificial means to just get a little taste of peace. Maybe it's in the form of a pill or a thrill or at the bottom of a bottle. All means by which we search for peace, and yet for some reason it never lasts. With that being said, let me ask you a question just to help sort of frame the remaining time that we have together in this moment. What's your current sense and experience of peace? Is it one of presence? Is peace a stable and continuing reality? Or is it one of absence, where peace is severely lacking or noticeably not there? What's your current sense and experience of peace? At this stage of the year, even in the midst of the celebration and anticipation of this Christmas Eve, peace can be something that's hard to come by. As the days tick down towards the end of what's been a challenging year in many different ways, you might have a tempered hope that next year might be a little bit better than this one. And although we might long for the possibility of peace, our perspective on it may be jaded by our experiences of peace being broken in the past. Laura Cave, who is a Christian writer from New York, she had these words to say about her mixed perspective on peace, and I wonder if you can relate. She writes, "If I'm honest, peace is the possibility that triggers the most initial skepticism in me. Just looking around, it feels hard to hope for peace. Why is peace so easy to lose and so hard to get back once it has slipped away?" I wonder, do Laura's words echo your own perspective on peace? See, that's the problem of peace, because the possibility of it can so easily be overshadowed by the challenges of maintaining it or the cost of restoring it. Peace has a price. It may cost you something, it may cost others something, but peace has a price. When I was 16 years old, I was playing in a game of AFL footy with my local club. And in the last quarter, I picked up the ball close to the boundary of the oval in the back line, and I went to kick it as far as I could down the ground. The only problem was the footy flew off the side of my boot. It sailed over the fence and went right through the front windscreen of a restored classic car that was owned by the dad of one of my mates. The damage to the windscreen was significant, and in the moments afterwards, my immediate concern was how I was going to pay for it. I didn't have the immediate funds in my account to pay the price of fixing what I'd broken. But after the game, my mate's dad, he came up to me and he told me not to worry about the cost of fixing the windscreen. He would cover the cost, and he would pay the price for a brand new windscreen instead. You know, one of the powerful reminders that the Christmas season provides is that it points to God's plan to cover the costs required to bring peace, lasting peace, through Jesus Christ. Centuries before Jesus' birth, God began to whisper through the words of prophets to describe this plan to bring peace on earth. Over the last few weeks in our English services, we've been camping out in a particular passage of the Bible that records a man named Isaiah describing the central role of Jesus in God's plan for peace. And this is what Isaiah predicted. "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." Now, in our remaining time here today, I just want to highlight two important things of note about Jesus being described as the Prince of Peace. The first thing is that the Hebrew word, which we have translated as peace, has got this incredibly rich meaning that we should not overlook. This kind of peace, Jesus' kind of peace, refers to personal fulfillment, well-being, harmony, and peace with God. It's a peace that can also describe someone or something being made whole or complete. The second thing is that the title Prince, it responds to more of our idea of like an administrator. And so this prince administers or oversees and implements the benefits of peace through their presence and power. When we put this all together, it's Jesus whose presence and power brings peace to you, it brings peace to me, and it brings peace to our world. Jesus' presence and his power brings peace. It needs to be said, however, that our own experiences in life would testify that our world is not always a peaceful place. And so what does this mean for Jesus' title as the Prince of Peace? Is he legit, or is this just false hope? How we respond depends on our perspective and our understanding of where we sort of currently live in God's unfolding plan to bring peace to the world. See, Christmas is the good news that peace is already here, and it's how the story of our world will eventually end. Just like the birth of Jesus, which we celebrate in this season, peace has come. But in the same way that we wait for Jesus to return again, peace is also a final reality that we're still anticipating. It's both now and not yet. So God's unfolding plan of bringing peace to the world through the presence and power of Jesus is a plan that we currently find ourselves right in the middle of. The world is not always a peaceful place, but we live in a hope that one day it will be completely, wholly at peace. And in the meantime, Jesus' presence and power is already bringing this peace that's transforming our world and the lives of people in it towards that perfect ideal. In fact, I'm convinced that Jesus' presence and power can bring transformative peace in and through your life at this very moment, because Jesus has got a clear track record of doing this. All you need to do is flick through the accounts of Jesus' life. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, these books in the Bible are filled with example after example, page after page of Jesus, the Prince of Peace, bringing peace to those that he encounters through his presence and his power. There's an author by the name of Asharita Chuchu, and she summed up Jesus' precedent of bringing peace with these words. During his time on earth, Jesus restored peace everywhere that he went. He calmed tumultuous storms. He brought healing to the sick. He raised the dead to life. He forgave sinners their sin. Do you see it? The peace that Jesus brings has the power to transform every part of your life and mine. In fact, Jesus himself described this type of peace that he brings. On the night before he was to be betrayed and ultimately killed on a cross, he said these words to his friends who were about to find themselves in a situation that was anything but conducive to experiencing peace. Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives, so do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." This peace which Jesus gives, it's presented as a gift which we can receive or ignore. It's a gift which brings us peace with God. Jesus carries the cost of reconciliation through his death on a cross so that the relationship between God and humanity can be restored. Jesus says, "My peace I give you." And it's also a gift that brings a sense of unreasonable peace regardless of circumstance. Jesus gives us the promise of his presence in our lives. And so no matter the situation, there's the confidence and assurance that Jesus is there with us. Jesus says, "My peace I give you." And it's a gift of peace that only Jesus in his power can give. His peace is something that nothing or no one else in the world can provide. It's the peace which can bring wholeness out of brokenness, healing out of sickness, and hope out of the darkest of circumstances. Jesus says, "My peace I give you." And it's a gift of peace that we receive simply by recognizing that it's Jesus who offers it and that it's Jesus who sustains it. At the very start, I mentioned how in the moments where peace evaporates in our life, who or what we turn to often reveals the source of peace that we base our lives around. And I asked you this question: What's your current sense and experience of peace? Is it one of presence or one of absence? Well, Jesus, through his presence and through his power, he says to you, my peace I give you. So why not receive this gift that Jesus offers? It's a gift that's offered to anyone and everyone. Jesus does not discriminate because of who you are or what you've done. And you don't even need to wait until Christmas Day to open and experience this gift. You can do that right now, simply by inviting Jesus' presence and power into your life. You might even want to do that by saying words as simple as this: Jesus, Prince of Peace, I bring you my life and my circumstances. Through your presence and your power, I ask that you would give me your peace. Inviting the presence and power of Jesus to bring peace into your life, it's not just something that we do one time in our lives. The opportunity exists for us at every moment of every day to bring our life and our current circumstances to Jesus, inviting his presence and his power to work in us and through us. And so what could that look like in your life today or maybe this week? Maybe it's when you find yourself jostling for a car park at Chadstone or the Glen in the rush to get that last thing on your Christmas list. When another car steals the spot that you had your eyes on, what could it look like then? To bring your circumstances to Jesus and invite his presence and power to bring peace in that moment. Or maybe you find yourself in a heated moment of disagreement or a differing opinion with that family member that you will only see at Christmas time. What could it look like in that moment to bring your circumstances to Jesus and invite his presence and power to bring peace in that moment? Or maybe you find yourself in the midst of this festive season where life is meant to be celebrated, and yet all you can think about and feel is everything that is missing or wrong or different in your life or with you at this very moment. In those moments, what could it look like to bring your circumstances to Jesus and invite his presence and power to bring peace to your life? Jesus' presence and power is available to anyone who brings their life and circumstances to him. So what could it look like for you to do that today or this week? In fact, as we finish out our time together right now, let's take a moment to do that together. Let's pray. Jesus, Prince of Peace, we bring you our life and we bring you our circumstances. Why don't you take a moment right now, just in the quietness and privacy of your own thoughts, to tell Jesus where you're at and what's currently happening in your life. Why don't you tell him the concerns that you have, the tensions that you feel, the things that fill your mind and provoke stress and anxiety in your body? Now, why don't you yield your life in those circumstances to the presence and power of Jesus? You might even want to say these words quietly out loud as they appear on the screen. Jesus, Prince of Peace, I bring you my life and my circumstances through your presence and your power. And I ask that you would give me your peace. Jesus, we say these things to you who hears our prayer, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen. I'm about to hand back over to Wade Lim as he brings a close to this service. But before I do, let me speak over you a blessing that's been spoken over the people of God for thousands of years. Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 to 26 says this: "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you his peace." May that be true for you today and into this week of Christmas as you experience the presence and power of Jesus, the Prince of Peace. over to you, Wade.